A lot of times they always put a directional arrow for the way the shaft is supposed to turn. Well, this one's wrong. And that's how this bearing works. I've never seen that before. Today we're going to open up this little Richmond City Millworks Planter's Pride grist mill and check it out. It's got some features that I've not seen in person on a grist mill before, and I'll tell you all about that. This is the mill that I got from Jim a couple weeks ago when I dropped off his New South mill. You saw the video on that one. We're going to open this thing up, see what it needs. It's going to be a pretty quick stone dressing and repair because this is a small grist mill, and get this thing back to him so they can get it back to grinding. Let's get to work. Well, here it is, the Richmond City Millworks Planter's Pride grist mill. And how this works, of course, up here's the hopper. And this auger screw is run by this shaft with this pulley, which this belt goes down around this pulley on the shaft, and that's what drives this feed pulley. The auger, as this pulley turns, the auger feeds the grain over in this direction, which right here you can see there's a little gate right there. And the way that works, there's a lever right here on the outside of the grain mill, and when you push the lever down, it raises and lowers this feed gate for the grain into the grist mill. See there? So as the auger's turning, you open that gate wherever you want it to feed the amount of grain that you want to go through. Then the grain falls down through here, down this spout, down into the stones. And you'll see more about that when we take this apart. This is the bed stone. The bed stone is plastered or concreted into this half of the casing. And these bolts, what holds it together here. And something that's strange to me on this little mill, a lot of times they always put a directional arrow for the way the shaft is supposed to turn. Well, this one's wrong. On all grain mills, the stones need to turn, if your spout is here coming out, your stones need to turn counterclockwise on this particular mill, or at least the runner stone. Now that can change depending on the setup. The runner stone on this mill needs to turn counterclockwise so that it's feeding the product out the spout. So with the stone turning this direction, it feeds the product out the spout just like that. Well, this arrow says to turn it the opposite direction, the wrong way. So all I can figure is this was a mistake, maybe a misunderstanding with the pattern maker that made the patterns to cast this case. I don't feel like there's any way this could be correct. And then a lot of times when you're looking at making a pattern, you have to make things the opposite of what they need to be. So that's my guess. This arrow is pointing the wrong direction. The horse or frame that holds the hopper up is pretty simple. Bolts on top here. The little spout has a lip here so that you could maybe put your bag up on here and tie a string around it and it would hold it on. See that lip? There's a couple cracks in it. Here's one. There's one right here's a piece that's been broke off. I think these little plates were added on later. I don't think that's original. The auger bushing is a little loose right here, not too bad, still work just fine. They've got washers on there to keep it from leaking. But there's the model name, Planter's Pride. Little small drive pulley. Got your oil reservoirs with their caps. And here. On this particular little mill here, you got a grease cup right here on the bearings. And I would say this is for just the thrust bearing, because these are what oil the friction bearings, the Babbitt bearings. So the way the grease cup works, you got this little cup, you put the grease in here, and you put it on, and it's threaded so it screws down. And when it gets down so far, when you're turning this, tightening it up, the grease cup's moving down, so it's going to press the grease inside down into the bearing. So every few hours of running, you just come by and give this a little turn like that, and it would press a little grease down into that bearing to keep it lubricated. That's how grease cups work, and this is a small one. I've never seen one on the thrust bearing the way this is, so that's interesting. We may take this cover off and investigate it a little further. And then you've got your two hand wheels here. You got your lock wheel here, which locks the adjustment for the stones, and then your main adjustment wheel here, which adjusts the stones in and out. Interesting little mill. We'll open it up here, check it out, and see what it needs. The bed stone, got the concrete surrounding it here. Some of that's gone down in this section. And over here, see they had steel pins coming in from the outside to hold the concrete in place so it could never move. Bed stone looks pretty good, still pretty thick, between 3 and 4 inches thick. This is French burr stone. You can see these pores in it. It was deemed the best stone for milling wheat into flour, fine flour, the French burr stone. It's a very hard river quartz. It comes out of the Marne Valley in the Paris Basin of France. You can see that the feed auger is pretty rusty, pitted. Had a lot of rust on it over the years. Still feels like there's enough there to do the job without any problems. And the French burr stones, especially in the big grain mills, like where you had a 36 or a 48-inch stone, they were in pieces. They come over on ships as ballast and blocks, and they could move them real easy and handle them. And when they got here, millwrights here would put them together and band them and put a plaster cap on them, crown them with plaster. The steel band that's on it is bolted on. You can see these ears right here. They got bolts going through. You can see right here the bolts. It's got a couple joints on this band where it goes together. Instead of heating the band and putting it on and letting it cool and shrink, they just bolted it. Somebody's been running this little mill, because you can see here the evidence of where the stones have rubbed. There, right here. So somebody's run it. Who knows how long ago it was, but because it's been closed up. But this is that some of the numbers on this are 12, which would make you think it's a 12-inch. It's actually 10-inch stones. All right. Take these bolts out. So the thrust bearing is made in one piece with the grease cup made in part of the end cap of the thrust bearing. Very interesting. So that when you turn the grease cup, like I was showing you a minute ago, it goes straight into the bearing. Now to look at this thrust bearing, I'm gonna take the grease cup off so that it'll slip back through and out of the bearing housing. Looks like it's surrounded by babbitt. It appears that this is not a roller race bearing. All this is a greasable babbitt thrust bearing. You can see there these two little grooves, which need to be cut deeper probably for now. And you can see how the end of the shaft has cut into the babbitt part of that bearing. And all this grease cup does is force grease down into the center and out this hole. And it goes between the end of the shaft and this babbitt. And that's how this bearing works. I've never seen that before. A babbitt thrust bearing. I'm going to take this over to the vise, use my little channel chisel, and recut those two grooves to allow the grease to get out on the end of the shaft to prevent wear. So now you can see we've got our grooves for the grease cut in here and here so that when that grease comes out this center hole, it'll have a place to go out to get on the end of the shaft as it turns to keep it slick and working good. And the tool I use to do that grooving is just a little old, some cheap carving chisel that I've had for a long time, and you can see the shape of it. And that just, when you push it along in that babbitt, it just cuts a nice little groove right in there, see? When you push it along in that babbitt, and it just cuts a nice groove for that grease to be able to escape out on the end of the shaft. Now I noticed when I was scraping these grooves out, there was a little bit of babbitt that went down in our port for the grease. And I know there's some PB Blaster in there, so I'm gonna put this down on here. Kind of semi-cover it up with this grease rag. Make sure there's nothing inside of that to prevent the grease from flowing through. You can see this bearing cover, the babbitt's good, the ways are good for the oil to get out, so we'll put it back on. this bed stone. I'm gonna carry it outside, take the air hose and blow out some of this dirt and junk that's in here. What?
I need to show you.
What?
I put some oil in the bearing pot.
Oil in the bearing, that's right, girl. You're smart as a cricket. Most amazing
Painter.
millstone painter you've ever seen, but I'm about the only one you can find.
That's good at painting.
That's good at it. Okay.
If I would see you still painting, and it's painting really good, that might be you.
Might be.
Because, I don't know what to say, Pops. You're the best one I could ever find in the whole entire world.
Well, that's right.
I guess my Popsy's a superhero and a millstone painter.
Boy, I'm just covered in compliments today, ain't I?
I guess so. Pops,
Yeah.
and I also never seen a man that works with turkey.
Really? Wow. What about that,
I
girl?
think you're also the best one that works with him.
Probably.
And you also got a turkey compliment. Compliment. You also got a turkey compliment.
We'll let them dry. Grease cup.
That's a grease cup, all right. A super grease cup. All right. What's that?
Grease?
But Pops, you don't have any car lights, do you, Pops?
Car lights?
Yeah, 'cause look.
Oh, well, it's can be used for different things.
Oh. I see.
That's pretty observant, though, of you to see that.
It's pretty clear. I can see it. They look like crystals.
Just a good old food grade grease.
Good old good grease.
Alright, watch out. Now see, we filled that up with grease. We'll put this on.
Back in.
And then that grease is in this cup. And when we turn this, it will squirt that grease down through there and make it come out down there where we need it to. So we screwed it all the way down, so it probably needed priming because we done cleaned it out once. So we'll go back and fill it up with grease again. Yep, see there, it's all down in there. We'll fill this up again.
It's sure windy.
I know it.
I don't know the bees would come in because it's so windy. I thought the bees like fresh wind. Oh, and Pop,
Huh?
the little spiders on my bike are still now. They're not moving.
They must be waiting on something, ain't they?
Mm-hmm.
Now we've a little too much, looks like, so
Oh no.
take that and take some back out. Sometimes it's hard to get the exact amount with these grease cups.
I agree, Pops. I really do.
Alright, now we got it.
Pops is really good at this.
Alright. Right here's the grease cup. We filled it up, and I'm going to tilt this back so that you can see when we turn this, you'll see the grease start coming out down in the middle of the bearing. See there? See it coming out? That's what greases the end of that shaft. And you tighten the hand wheel up and you push the bearing up against the end of the shaft. That's what greases it. See, that turns right there against the bearing, see? That's what does it. That's what greases it.
No.
Alright, we got it painted. Now we're going to put it back together and run it so that we can see exactly what these stones are doing.
Like we always do.
Right. Like we always do to dress stones. Sharpen the rocks.
Like I said earlier, you're great at this.
Sharpen the rocks.
A bit cranking through will help. Maybe. If I shake through, probably get in shape, good shape. I just learned how to do this. It's going
You can see we got a little contact here and here, just a little bit on this corner. So that'll take a little bit of pecking to get down and be ready to put it back together and run it again. You can see right here where it's touching. So that's what we want to take down. getting real close. I can see there's just barely anywhere that don't have some contact. So I'm gonna switch to the mill pick now, and I'm gonna just very lightly put cracking in on all these lands, and then I'll paint it. This step is just to true it up and get it more true with the runner stone, and I'll paint it again one last time, put it together and run it, and whatever high spots that reveals, well, hopefully it'll be the last time I can just put the cracking in and be done with it.